on October 25th, 2023. I'm going to call the Municipal Building Commission to order, and we have a full house. Everyone is here, and our architect from Abacus, both of them, have just come in, so that's good. We have about 10 minutes worth of work to do before we can get to you, but if you want to set your computer up and do whatever you have to do, you can feel free to do that. So the first order of business is to approve the minutes from October 4th, excuse my cold, 2023. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. I think, Mason, we should go to the Willett roof, and I see Anjanette.
Yeah, we'll go to Willett. Anjanette's here to give us a brief project, just a quick project update, and talk about the invoices for this month.
Okay, you got the floor, Anjanette.
Okay, I guess I'll just start with the project update. We are pretty much substantially complete. Tomorrow, we do have a punch list walkthrough with Socotech, and then next Tuesday, I believe they're going to be flying a drone. As we can't get up onto the roof, we're going to, they're going to use that so that they can go fly over and just check, the different transition areas and whatnot. The only work that remains outstanding is there's some metal roofs that have to be sanded. There's a little bit of soldering that has to happen, primed and painted, and painted special order. So he's trying to get that, hopefully get the work done this weekend. But after that, we should be substantially complete, and then we'll start once we understand what the full scope of the phased work is. We'll start procuring that. Hopefully to go out to bid in the springtime so we can get that work done shortly thereafter. I'm gonna share my screen so that you guys can see the invoice. Just confirm that you can see it.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, all right.
Still over there.
So for the month, these are all for the month of September. We have the Skanska invoice, and I'll just remind you that Bob was full-time over there while they were doing their work. And so that invoice, we billed the remainder of the first part of the contract, which was $21,478.75, and then we billed against the second part of the contract for $4,406.25. We still have about $85,000 left to bill out, and we're only billed out 5% of that second part of the contract that we have. Socotech is billed out 100% for all their design development, their CDs, and the bidding work. The construction administration, they're billing $16,650 for the month of September. Leaves them a balance of about $1,850, and again, that's just for the final punch list item. JD&D, the subcontractor, the roofer, this month billed $221,840.97 for the contract work. That includes the louvers, the rest of the gutter work, there was some painting, insulation, all of that. He also billed $39,276.26 for the change work, which was the installation of the gutter bars. That work is 100% complete. These values represent the amount certified, which means that from what he's submitted, we're still withholding his retainage. So his total invoice was $261,117.23, and that was for both his contract work and the change order work. So that leaves us, the total invoices for the month of September are $303,652.23, and it fills us out to about 47% at this time. Does anybody have any questions?
Seeing none, Mason, these bills are in order to pay?
These bills are in order.
Okay, then a motion to approve those three bills is in order.
Move to approve.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, thank you, Anjanette.
I'll see you guys next week. Thanks.
Okay, do we have Mark available on the line? Ah, there he is. Excellent.
And Amy, yes, thank you, sir.
I believe we have Richard as well.
Yeah, I'm here.
Perfect.
Good evening.
Okay, so we have Mark Zawatsky and Rich Gorham. So we have bids that came in for the police roof project. Mark, are you or Rich, who's going to talk about that?
I'll start off for a second. Both Rich and I attended the bid opening on the 20th. We received 5 bids. They were opened by the city. Both Mason and his budget clerk were in attendance. I'm having a mental break as to her name. But we received 5 bids. The low bid was $350,600 by Gibson Roofing. And if you remember, sir, in committee, the commission, that Gibson was the successful entity that did the roofing at the most recent projects at the fire stations. And I know that Socotec and Rich Gordon in particular have prior experience with them as well. The bids were very closely clustered. The second bidder was $374, the third was $390 and change, and $397,200, and then one a little bit higher at $426. So I believe, and in my discussions with Socotec, that is reflective of a really good set of contract documents and a project manual, given that the bids were so closely clustered. So and I know that Socotec's going to talk about their due diligence with PCAM and references and recommendations. So I'm going to turn it over to Rich, but I feel very good that we're going to have a successful project in the requested timeframe.
And Mark, what was our, excuse me, what was the amount that we're projecting the bid to come in at?
Mason, I believe that number was around 425,000. Is that correct?
So it was around, so the number that was given to the central register, I believe, in the bids was 400,000. When we broke down the unit prices under Rich's estimate, I want to say it was around closer to 390. Is that correct, Rich?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, so it was about,
Really close to that.
and we built in an additional contingency just because the projects have been coming in higher than project estimates consistently. And we see that with the previous roof we just did, right? So, so we actually came in a really good spot. We came in under expectations, and assuming there's no additional change orders, right? There's an additional 100,000 in our budget for construction right now. So if there is change order work or something does come up, we are going to be able to address that. So I think we feel really confident right now, assuming this is moving forward with this bid.
Excellent.
Yeah, and then also, if you take into account that during the bidding process, we added the $7,500 for the antenna stuff, that, the number, you folks got a very good number here.
Yeah,
Also, for the time of year, we're hitting November, where contractors are looking for, those projects to carry them out towards the end of the year. So, that was, the numbers, I was certainly pleased with those.
We estimated pretty conservatively about 30 hours of potential work or observation on site by the city's vendor for the antennas. So, I mean, that we carried a healthy allowance for that. So, I mean, again, that's another piece that we could see. We'll expect to see some savings at the end of the project.
Excellent. And Rich, anything you want to add? I know you gave us a letter recommending the award.
Yeah, so we called 8 people, or 8 references listed on the DTM contractors form. Unfortunately, we were only going to get 2 respond. We recalled 4 more yesterday, still couldn't get any answers. So what we did is we have experience, as Mark has already mentioned, with Gibson Roof. As a matter of fact, we're doing a project with them, the Boston Housing Authority right now. And they've performed absolutely fantastic. We've had no problems with Gibson roofs. I know Mark has, experience with them, and he's already spoken, about them. In the 2 references that we checked, nobody had, there was nothing negative in any of those references. Okay, so we're not concerned. They are very capable of completing the job. I was with Gibson Roofs on Monday. I had a conversation specifically about this job with them, and they said they're anxious to get going on it. They feel that they can complete the roof, relatively quickly. The only situation we see developing might be with the ordering of the new door. Doors, for some reason, just seem to take a lot longer. But if that's the only long lead time we see, the roof, the entire roof can be done, and they can come back, obviously, and do the door. So, we're recommending that, the project be awarded to Gibson Roofs for the $350,600.
Okay, any questions from the commission?
No.
If not, then a motion is in order to recommend to the mayor the award of the police station roof contract to Gibson Roofing in the amount of $350,600.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion's unanimous.
Jack, while we're on the topic of the police roof, could I also enter another invoice into the record? This is actually for Socotec for services through September, which we just received.
Okay.
I think considering that the award recommendation has been made, I think it'd be reasonable. The city is ready to move forward with payment if the commission is willing to consider.
And how much is that bill?
So the invoice is for services through September 30th from Socotec. It is invoice number 37190, and the amount due this invoice would be $15,600, which would bring us up to I believe 80% completion on the design, docs, contract, docs, and bidding.
And we're 100% at that stage.
Once
so-
the contract, once we're actually under
So
contract.
we're still ahead of them.
Exactly.
Okay, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, is there anything else that we need to hear from Mark or from Rich? I assume we're going to be getting the contract signed and getting the contractor out there as quickly as possible, right?
Yeah, so we're gonna move on the city side to expedite it as best we can. Rich has already been working, with the team, with Mark and myself, to pre-populate the contract documents, assuming that the commission had made the recommendation. So we're gonna look to move forward as quick as we can.
Excellent. Anything else you want to add, gentlemen?
Well, just that, our experience with Gibson in the past was that they performed in very similar November, December, winter timeframe as this project requires. So we hold a good deal of confidence that they can replicate those activities and that level of performance. I would say that, as Mason just indicated, the need to obtain the mayor's signature and all the purchase and all the requisite approvals and contract review by the city solicitor and the ultimate purchase order within the shortest time frame possible will enable us to have success within the required time frame. So as we say in construction, the ball is in the city's court, and we know we have a high-functioning team, so we look forward to everybody moving with velocity so we can get the contractor out there. If you need any assistance or have any questions, either from Socotec or myself, we're happy to assist in answering any questions on behalf of the solicitor, the auditor, or any of the other municipal entities that would be reviewing this process.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your attendance, both of you. So now I think we go on to the main event of the evening. And David and Michaela are here. So I know that since we last met, you've done a lot of work. You've had meetings with Kelly. And I think that based on what you sent out to us, that we had a chance to review, I think we're certainly moving in the right direction here. So if you want to make your presentation, you've got the floor.
Thank you very much. David Pollack, Principal in Charge, Abacus Architects and Planners, and Michaela Wozniak, Architect, who have been the team working on this with our subconsultants, Civil Engineering by pair, and IMEG doing mechanical and electrical, plumbing, and fire protection, and PM&C prepared the cost estimate. We have worked closely with Kelly and implementing her responses and guidance on the three different design approaches that we presented here when we were last here, and with your guidance, we've also implemented a lot of the guidance that came from that meeting that we had with the Municipal Building Commission. And we have the three different schemes or options. Also, we've brought them into a lot of convergence. They really have the same rooms, the same room counts, the same features, approximately the same program. There's a difference in the amount of net square footage that you'll see. That has more to do with some of the secondary spaces, storage and things, particularly that you get a lot more net square footage in reutilizing the existing building, which is a bonus. And I'll walk us through the three options, and just very quickly, this is just part of the presentation. This is the overall existing site plan. The main thing that it tells us is there is auxiliary parking that's going to remain down at that lower lot on the entry. And also there's the the Parks Department court, it should say, Parks Maintenance court, and the existing buildings to remain the existing site plan. And then that sort of pathway on the bottom, that's one of the golf cart courses that lots of people run on and walk on. This is the existing conditions plans with all of the previous utilization of the spaces. You know, on the left where it says kitchen, there's no kitchen there now, but those are where all the rooms are. We prepared demolition plans of all levels, but didn't include them in this package, but they're in the package that Mason has, and we prepared them obviously for the cost estimator. So the reuse of the golf club, here's the site plan, and it's largely unchanged. There's some parking spaces just to the above, we can call it, to the east, or where it says rehab of Highland Clubhouse. There's some parking set up along there. The biggest change to the site plan is the covered drop-off, the organization of all of the vehicular circulation throughout the parking lot and throughout the site, and with an organized loop where when you drive in, you can come around. There's handicap parking directly adjacent, and then there's a porte cochere or covered drop-off you can drive under. It's wide enough that you can have several cars lined up unloading, as well as other cars can go by. This is a feature of all of the options. This is the proposed floor plan, and it has all of the office suite that very much as Kelly worked out, and also it has a division of the offices with a secondary office suite on the lower level, which is part of the program that was given to us by Council on Aging, to have sort of a satellite office, a smaller satellite office, so they have people throughout the facility. There's a break room, there's a toilet room, a handicapped toilet room within the administration suite, a copier room, an elevator is added to the building for handicap accessibility. There's a meeting room. In all of the options, we've positioned some folding partitions to create more programmatic flexibility. And you can see those three dark squares, that's the parking lots for the folding partitions. So the one on the left would unfold and divide the great room into two separate programming rooms. The one on the lower right separates off the great room, and then the one on the upper right makes the dining room into a private dining room that isn't kind of sharing space with the corridor that leads out to that sunroom. But if both of those folding partitions were opened the way they are in the drawing, then the dining room shares space with the great room, and it's up to around 3,500 square feet or so, including the corridor space. So this is for that once or twice a year when there's larger functions that need to really spread out, get more people in the door. And we tried to incorporate that kind of large function flexibility without making the great room, bigger. And that's a feature of all of the options. Where it says multipurpose room 1 sunroom, that could actually be part of the great room, but where we came to with Kelly was that the added flexibility of having a program room there made a lot of sense. And to have one more program room on the upper floor made a lot of sense. On the right is outdoor landscape development. It's not programmed. So what you see there, a dining patio directly off of the dining room, that seems like probably a really good idea to have that kind of space. But then to the right of it, where it says garden, that's TBD. How that space would be built out is not, we just wanted to have the cost estimator put some money there for landscape development here. And the bathrooms in the lower left-hand corner is kind of the only built-out feature in the building that's retained. Those are the existing bathrooms. They'll be spiffed up, but they're handicap accessible. And they have, a significant amount of capacity, and then they're doubled up on the lower level. So between repeating that, the new under it, the bathrooms below these bathrooms, and then having the single-use toilet in the administrative suite, we think we have that covered. The great room, and this was actually a suggestion from the discussion that we had with you all, has a raised ceiling and a raised roof. So that space, what's included in the design and the cost estimate is to take there's a lot of columns in that room that would make it hard to do movement class and everything. And also the ceilings throughout the building are not that high for large rooms. They're fine for medium-sized rooms. And so what's proposed is to raise the roof over the great room and put long span there so that you can have large movement classes, and also to have clear story windows around that room to bring lots of light into it, to make it a really wonderful room. We had shown the idea of one of the many options we showed last time of cutting away the floor and having a great room on the lower level. For many reasons, that didn't go over well. Didn't seem like worth the effort and taking away space. But it was one of member of the commission suggested, instead of doing that, how about raising the roof? So that's built into the budget. On the lower level, there's the other thing that is there's sort of 3 new construction pieces here. There's raising the roof, as I just said, over the great room. There's, to the left of it, it says open to lounge below. So there's cutting away a piece of floor to make a double height space to create very strong wayfinding, connection between the 2 levels, and connection to the park. So when you come in the main entrance, there's a weather vestibule, then reception with a staff right at the desk there. And then as soon as you step into the lobby, you look to your right and you see out across the golf course through a double height glass wall, this level and the level below. So you not only get the connection to all the spaces on the lower level, but you get the immediate connection to the park, the adjacent elevator, the architectural stair that takes you down into that lounge. And I think that this expense of cutting away that piece of floor and building this open stair is really a very efficient, transformative move to make this building work really well as a senior center. And then the third move is the porte cochere, the covered entrance on the outside, tearing down the little gazebo sort of handicap ramp thing and building that covered drop-off. The rest of it is really just moving walls, doors, windows, a lot of the building needs to be largely rebuilt to meet stretch code and basically the energy code and to bring it up to date. But there aren't other. That's it for the major moves: the drop off, the open to below, and the raising the roof on the great room. So down below on the great room is 3 rooms. One of them has a wall because that's the art room. That's a specifically programmed room. The other 2 have a folding wall, so that could be a 1,400 square foot, 1,350 square foot room, or 2 small classroom size, 670 square foot rooms. You come down into that lounge kind of wraps around the corner. We're calling it game room, because there's a fair amount of space there. It's a good place to have, whatever kinds of things, but if you want pool tables, billiard tables, ping pong tables, that kind of thing, or card tables, or other, kind of social space. The mechanical room remains where it is today. You can see the L-shaped stair in the middle of the mechanical room. That's an existing fire stair, so we're keeping that. That's fire egress up and out from this lower level, from the interior of this lower level. And then there's a dedicated fitness room, a lot of storage, and a secondary office suite. So in the roof plan, you can see that sort of gable roof on the left. That's the outdoor covered entry, the porte cochere, the drop-off. And then where it says on the square on the lower right, where it says 180 feet 6 inches, that's the high roof over the great room. And then those 4 little squares in a row are bringing light into interior rooms, because this is a very big floor plate. It's over 100 feet in each dimension, so the interior is inherently dark. Thank you, Madam Mayor, for this suggestion. I think it's a really great suggestion to bring light into those rooms. So that's the break room, a skylight in the break room, a skylight in the meeting rooms, and then 3, and these are just 4 by 4 foot little pop-ups. So not a big deal, but just bring a little extra light into the dining room. Here's some horizontal views or building sections. The top one starts at the parking lot on the left. You can see there's kind of a car unloading, a sedan there unloading somebody under the covered drop-off. You can see there's enough room for another car to go by to the left. There's the weather vestibule, gift shop, the lobby, and you can see the raised roof in the great room. And then the second section, section B, is that cut through the lobby and the lounge. And on the right, you can see that double-height glass wall looking out onto Fairway 1, onto the golf course with outdoor patio. And then on the bottom, the section through the great room, and you can see those clear story, those high windows wrapping around, or just sort of are, suggested as those high squares above. So you want me to charge on to the other 2 schemes, or take a breath?
Why don't we stop and see if there are any questions that anybody wants to ask at this point before we go on to the other 2 alternates that you have designed.
What do you have planned for that roof for the great room? Is that gonna be a flat roof or a hip roof or what?
It's drawn as a flat roof. It can be whatever anybody wants it to be. It can be more, it could be a gable, it could be a hip, it could have more, it could have more height under it. The cost is pretty much the same for those different options. It could, it could go low to high and sort of, bring more south light in, any of the above.
What's the alternate square
That's all on the back cover, if you just, and that's also along with don't want to spoil the surprise, but the money's on the back cover too. All you have to do is flip it over to see what the punchline is, if you're impatient. Anything else, other questions? Yes.
David, I just wanted to, so I'm still a fan of reuse, but I want to thank you, and especially Kelly, for your input, because this is what you need, right, Kelly? Based upon what you now know as the director. So I appreciate your input, and David, I appreciate your willingness to rework this, and it looks good to me. I'm particularly excited about the sunroom and the dining patio and some of the stuff that you've added that seems to be not crazy expensive additions, but will greatly improve the quality and use of the building, like the glass wall at the lounge. So thank you. I know you didn't love it, but I thank you for being open to it, and this is awesome. And to Jerry's point, I'm thinking a pitched roof aesthetically would be more appealing, but good job. Good job so far.
Ed?
Yeah, I like the openness and the flexibility of those folding walls and creating different size spaces. And I'm very happy to see an elevator in the plan. How do you bring the outside in as an important part of this whole scheme? I think the fairway level is just as important as level 1 and 2. How do you get out of the building onto the fairway?
So you come into the lobby, and on your left is an elevator, and on your right is that great big glass wall with a grand, it doesn't have to be expensive grand, but an open stair that carries you right down, and it delivers you right by glass doors that go right out onto the outside patio, and from there you can go anywhere you want. What is not included in this plan is the future kind of park and recreation development that the city will do from there. But we get you down and out very
You have to
easily.
go downstairs to get out.
No, the elevator's right there.
The elevator goes to both levels? The fairway level, the first level, and the second level?
There's only 2 levels there.
There's the first and the second and the fairway.
No, there's just the fairway and there's just the entry
David,
and the
could you-
fairway.
could you go
That's it.
back?
Okay, right.
David, could you go back a couple of slides to the,
Well, but we can also
just go
look,
back to the lower,
we look right here, here's the fairway, and here's the, here you're in the lobby, the elevator's right here, you can actually see the top of the elevator.
yeah.
You can take the elevator down, walk right out, and then you're right there. This just needs to have paths connecting and stuff like
It's just a
that.
gentle, walkable slope.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're already down there.
But you're not at the fairway level yet. You have to go another 5 or 6 feet from the lower
But
level.
over like 80 feet of length, so you really just need to do a little bit of more golf cart path. It's not even, you can do it without any railings or anything like, so handicap ramps are anything over 5% or 1 in 20 slope. Once you get to that patio, everything can be under 1 in 20. It can all just be walking paths. No, not a problem. It's the same. The lower level is low enough to get you down to the fairway elegantly without risk and everything. You're there. You wouldn't want to be any lower inside the building or with the elevator or anything.
So the elevator goes to 5 feet above the fairway.
Yeah.
Okay, and you have to use ramps to get the
No,
rest of
just paths.
Well, how about someone in a wheelchair?
So a ramp is technically defined as something a little bit steeper than a path. A ramp is anything between 1 in 20 slope and 1 in 12. And then you can't do anything steeper than 1 in 12, an inch and a foot. But that whole landscape can be designed to be under 1 in 20. So it's just easy for a wheelchair.
For a person self-propelling in a wheelchair, that's easy?
Under 5% is good. Yeah.
I
it's
think
not a
we
ramp.
all ought to remember, though, that this is what typically in a 5-part architectural contract, in my mind, is conceptual design. This is not design development, this is not construction documents. What we're doing here is determining if we have a site, if we know the program and it fits, and does the number fit within our budget. So that's what we're doing at this point. If we go forward with one of these plans and we get then to the next phase, design development, we would then have much more detailed plans and issues of, is there site work that we can do?
I think he adequately answered my questions and concerns
Yeah.
about the lower level. I went over there and looked at it, and if you don't make plans for it, it's going to be so inaccessible that people won't go out and use it, particularly people in wheelchairs.
Right, but at this point, we know they can go out onto the patio, and that's an important factor, but as I said, we are not at design development, which would be the next phase if this project goes forward.
Okay.
And so, as I said, we were charged with answering 3 questions. What do you build, where do you build it, and how much does it cost? And what I think they've done here is answered those 3 questions.
I agree.
And there's a lot of work to get from here to cutting the ribbon.
Maybe not the ground.
Okay, if there are no other questions, oh, Jay.
Just one question. So, I know originally, months back, we had talked about there was the need for rooms where people could meet with staff and have privacy and whatnot. Is that covered in part of the offices, or is there a certain room for that?
The offices that are on the first and second floor.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Mason.
So the elevated ceiling for the great room. So looking at the side profiles here, so it looks like the floor, the roof for the rest of the building would be 11 feet 4 inches, if I'm reading this correctly. What is the current, that ballroom, what's the current height of that ceiling right now, and how much is the increase? Because on here, that's the only thing I can't really tell is what you're kind of projecting as how much you're raising it. So what was kind of built in there?
Just in the great room, how much are
Just
we
in the great
lifting
room,
that roof? Well, in order to get nice, decent clear-story windows, you need to well, there's probably not enough insulation on the current deck, so the top of the existing roof will be higher, a little bit higher when it gets rebuilt, to get adequate code-compliant insulation, but you'll probably have an extra 2 or 4 inches or 5 inches. I mean, depends on how much is up there now. I don't think there's a lot of insulation up there right now. But those windows, for the size of this room, those windows ought to be 3 feet tall. They don't necessarily need 3 feet of glass, but something like a 30 or a 36-inch clear story is probably, given the scale, about right. And you need to get the sill of that window high enough up from the snow. So you don't, so we drew, I think, Michaela, you drew it you lifted it, from the underside, you lifted it 5 feet, something like that. So that's again, as Jack was sort of saying, we haven't looked at it in large-scale detail, but probably popped it up about 5 feet.
Okay, all right. Do you know, so currently the ballroom is higher than
No,
ceiling in
it's
the
just a
ballroom?
flat ceiling throughout the whole building.
Not higher right now? It's
No.
Oh, okay.
No, and that
Oh,
was
but it's
one of the-
high. They're not low ceilings
Yeah.
right now. It's just a question of how much higher do you want to go?
Okay.
What do you think, they're like 11 feet? No, 10 feet?
Probably
Yeah.
10 or 11. But, yeah, so I think that, whether it's 48 inches or 60 inches or 66 inches, that's for the next phase. But I think the concept that a number of people talked about here last time, which was raising the roof to do that, that's what they've incorporated here. And I'm always glad when architects listen to the commission members. So, should we move on to a second scheme?
So scheme 2, in some ways seems a little unlikely, because it's kind of tearing down the building and rebuilding the same building there, because it's still a 2-story building, still goes down, and it's in the same place. So like, why bother, right? That's the question. And the answer is for better interior organization, for better construction quality and energy, to reduce change order exposure from unforeseen conditions, which is always higher on a rehab than on a new construction project. So there's a little more uncertainty. You could lose some of the gains later on. And then also to orient the building more to the south rather than to the west. It currently faces west, and there's the architectural design will have to really address that, because you don't really want to be addressing it with just having shades going up and down all the time, and there's some really good deciduous trees there, and that's great. That's just what you want on the west, because you get all those leaves keep the sun off the windows in the summer, and then in the winter the leaves fall and the sun comes in. So it's not terrible, but big west-facing glass is not ideal. Big south-facing glass is ideal. So this turns the building around, it rotates it to face south, and it pulls it out of the hill to be able to start getting more windows around the perimeter on the lower level. So better organization, more light, and better orientation, and risk management are the reasons to kind of go in this direction.
And the red dotted line is the current footprint?
Yep, that's the existing building. So you can see how it pulls out of the hill. Because the lower level has no windows on 3 sides. So now you can get windows on, 2 sides, a little bit of 3 sides, basically 2 sides. You can see that the kitchen and the dining room are down below, and the kitchen service now, you come past the parks maintenance, and there's a little service court here for the kitchen. The drop-off, all this arrangement upstairs is really pretty much identical. Here's the upper level. So directly from the drop-off, come through a vestibule into reception area. Here's the staff on the desk. Bathrooms are adjacent, coat room is adjacent, kind of a lobby, upper lobby, stair down, elevator down. And on this, and then the major part of the whole admin wing, the conference room, which has a door from interior, but also a door from the lobby. So if it's used more publicly, multi-use, a 1,500 square foot multi-purpose room that has 2 of those folding walls. So there's 3 program rooms here, upper level bathrooms, and then a view down to the lounge below and down to the great room below. So this option has the 2-story great room, and you look at it down from below. So this corridor here leads you to the 3 multi-purpose, the program rooms on the upper level, and you can see through a glass wall down into whatever's happening in the great room. There's another program room on this level. It certainly doesn't have to be the art room, but we've sort of we've parked the art room there. It's very compact. Everybody can kind of know what's going on, see what's going on, meet and greet, see everybody else. You go down that, you can talk to people downstairs, you can slip down the staircase or the elevator. It brings you to this lower level lounge, fitness room, durable medical equipment storage for wheelchairs and lending stuff like that, the secondary office suite. Here's that kitchen service court and the kitchen and the dining room. And here again, you can see that the great room has a folding wall, so it can be 2 1,200 square foot program rooms or 1 2,400 square foot program room, but that you can also fold this wall back and grab another 900 square feet in the lounge, or fold this wall back and grab another 750 square feet over here. So you can really have a big function there, get over 4,000 square feet in this space, moving back and forth and around with the bathrooms. So it seems like it has and then obviously the continuous patio, outdoor immediate access to the park, outdoor dining, outdoor fitness. We feel like the plan is a pretty comfortable one. You can do a lot of things here, very convenient, not necessarily worth the price bump, but works pretty well, I think. And the other thing is that if you rebuilt the building, right now the main floor is 2 feet up from all the adjacent asphalt. So getting in and out of the building isn't fun for wheelchairs. Now, as we get into, we or whoever you hire for an architect to do the actual project, get into site planning and detailed development, we would make every effort to kind of goose the asphalt up as far as we could on the rehab to reduce the burden of ramping to get in and out of the building. We may be able to cheat that, we may be able to solve that problem, but it's limited because the parking lot slopes off towards the old driving range pretty, over that length, and we can't make it too much steeper because, again, handicap access requirements, we have to keep it under 5%. We have to keep anything anywhere near handicap parking is under 2%. So there are limits to how much we can do that, but we would certainly try to reduce that ramping. If we build a new building, if you build a new building, you can put the main level, the upper level, at roll-in and not have any ramps. So you can lower the main level, and then you can also lower not only that 18 inches that you would lower the main level, might want to keep it a little above the parking, you can erase all that, but keep rain out and stuff. But anyway, we could lower the upper level, and then we could lower the lower level more than we lower the upper level to get more ceiling height in the lower spaces, which would be nice. Because mechanical equipment, ducts and everything, the floor-to-floors in assembly buildings, commercial buildings that are built today are much more depth from one floor to the next. Buildings are routinely built much taller today because of mechanical equipment requirements than they were in 1958 when this building was built. So you have more room if you do that. And then that would also address the issue of you'd be closer to the fairway on that lower level as well, if you were to push that lower level down. Just one more modest opportunity in building a new building.
Question, going back to the parking lot, and say you, keeping the existing building, you raise the grade of the parking lot, does that trigger any additional maybe drainage requirements or any other requirements that if you raise grades on the parking lot, you have to do any other remediation or?
It's a good question, but we've got significant amount of remediation built into our the civil engineers worked with the city engineers to get a baseline understanding of what's expected. They've got a fairly robust program of stormwater management built into into the documents that we sent to the cost estimator and that we sent to Mason. So,
and is there a major difference in that cost, whether it's a new building or the existing building's rehab?
That's a good question. I don't think so. I think I checked the site development costs for all three options, and they're actually not very different in the estimates.
If the city's stormwater ordinance, if we disturb more than 2,500 square feet, then we are subject to the ordinance. But as a new project, you're required to meet 100% of the stormwater standards. If it's a rehab project, you only have to use best efforts and maintain at least 40% of, I believe, of what would otherwise be required. So
So in theory, there should be a cost differential.
Yeah. So the rehab would not necessarily require as much stormwater treatment as as a new building. And the other thing to remember is that one of the reasons for stormwater controls is that you can't be dumping your stormwater on your neighbor's property, but where we're situated here, anything that flows down towards the first fairway, it's our property, so there's an advantage there. I happen to do this for a living, so I'm familiar with it.
So we've gone over the lower level plan. The roof plan is pretty simple. There's just a little skylight here to bring light into the conference room, which is otherwise not daylit. Here's the drop-off roof, which is raised a little bit to make sure we can get, tall vans and things driving under there. And then cross sections. Here's the great room in long section. There's that glass wall for the corridor upstairs, the lounge, folding wall here, and then this is the kind of cross section of the lobby looking down into the lounge, outdoor space.
This would be a flat roof.
Wouldn't have to be, but
Not have to be.
no. I mean, nothing has to be a flat roof. You can
Hey, just-
put all kinds of roofs on it, but the way it's drawn is as a flat roof. Yeah.
Okay, good. Jay?
All right, I'm gonna ask a monkey wrench question. If we took the scheme 2, so second floor, the upper floor, and we took the great room and actually raised the roof like we did on option 1, it actually then created it as a one-level great room on the upper floor, so we don't have the the full height ceiling. and we have the room underneath it, is that something that would be possible? So almost we have two great rooms.
It's adding program that is kind of more than Kelly is asking for, so almost certainly by the time we went really around that track, we'd be shrinking the building to right-size it to conserve the city's resources, you know? We don't want to oversize the building. And we also have the third option, which is more of a one-story, it's a one-story plus. It started out as a one-story. We'll get to it, but you could, yeah, no, there's nothing to,
My only
there's
concern would be-
absolutely nothing to prevent you from putting that floor back into this, this concept and creating another, well, like below is 2,400 square feet, so this is 1,800 square feet of double height space or something. So you could increase the net square footage in the building by another 1,800 square feet, and you'd have to build that floor, but, you know, you got more lights, more ducts and everything, but that's low-cost chain, you know,
Well, that's
low-cost
my
space
thing, like,
creation.
I wouldn't want to sit here in 20 years with someone saying, can we build it, we need to put an addition on the building, when in maybe now we could consider just building extra free space into it, that I'm sure we'd find a way to fill in the meantime, but if it's cheaper now, why not make it something to consider?
I think the other concern is having the great room down, so everyone coming through the main entrance, if you're going to the great room, either has to go down the stairs or an elevator.
And the kitchen is not, you know, as accessible as in the previous plan, right?
Yeah, so I think that what I would say is that concern, which was articulated really clearly by a member of the public who pointed out when we were talking about the need to have a separate dining room and the adjacency of the kitchen to the separate dining room, but also the proximity of the kitchen to the great room, so it's multifunction. And it was pointed out that the earlier version of this two-story scheme couldn't do that because the kitchen and the great room were downstairs, but there wasn't a dedicated dining room, or, you know, there wasn't that kind of flexibility. So we have addressed that, where you could say that you know, dining, great room, like certain kind, you know, and lounge, that there's a certain kind of social function that's primarily downstairs. Let's just say you're renting it out for a wedding. They really don't need to go upstairs. Everything they need is downstairs, although they can use the lobby and lounge, an entrance upstairs, but then downstairs they can have, you know, they can use the lounge for hors d'oeuvres and, you know, move around, and it's everything downstairs is self-sufficient now because the kitchen is able to serve a lot of different spaces. And the idea is that the argument would be that the beauty of this site is not to be on the level with the cars, but to be on the level of the park. And so if you make that more enticing, more attractive, and, you know, then everybody's gonna come in and they can ride down on the elevator. It's right there. They have this beautiful view and the stair that draws them downstairs, and a significant part of the life of the building. You've really livened up that lower level, so it's wonderful down there. And there's lots of good stuff going on upstairs, so you got a really vibrant, active two-story building. It's not secondary space. If you really feel like downstairs is a place people, you know, don't want to go, isn't as desirable, like the good space is upstairs because it's much nearer the door, definitely don't do this scheme, you know? Because this is saying downstairs is great, let's get people downstairs, it's really wonderful. But the next option, you know, has almost everything on the upper level. Originally, we drew as a single-story building, and then we said, well, it's got a fatal flaw, it doesn't get you to the park. So then we you know, added just a little compact piece of lower level with the architectural stair and the elevator, so that you had the best of both worlds. Should we go on to that one?
Yes.
Okay. So this started out, it was one story, it's not quite one story anymore. You know, it's a little, the site plan is a little different. Handicap parking is still really convenient immediately to the entry. Here's the drop-off. People drive in, they can loop around and do right-hand drop-off, which you always want. go back out if it's like the van, doing transit around town, the ride, or you can circle around, drop somebody off if it's drizzling, and then head down, find a space in the parking lot. We'll get to a roof plan. All the action is upstairs. The kitchen service is upstairs. Parking is upstairs. Some outdoor spaces is upstairs. So this provides access to the lower level, but this is primarily a one-story senior center, which isn't the only option for a senior center, but it's the most popular option. Generally, there are more new senior centers built in Massachusetts that are just single-story, everything you can roll to, walk to, than there are multi-story. The multi-story ones tend to get built in more expensive sites, tighter sites. You can't find a place to put a building. You need a lot of parking. So you stack the floor plates because you want it in the center of town, and the only site that's available is only so big. Anyway, multi-story is often a second choice, not when you have the options that we have here of getting down to this amazing park. But the idea here is that the floor plan is really everything on one level, except in this case, the fitness room and access to the outdoors. And then after we had it all drawn as a single-story building, we had this discussion and dropped in the elevator and the stairway and this little lower lounge to get to the lower level. And then what's on the lower level? Well, the mechanical room, a couple of offices, small lounge, the fitness space, and some bathrooms, and then outdoor space. So indoor fitness, outdoor fitness, access to the exterior, get the mechanical room where, into the dark, no need to use space with windows. And on the upper level, again, very compact entry sequence, like in the other new construction option. From drop-off, you come through the weather vestibule into the reception in the lobby, and you have greeting from admin right there, the staff all the time, somebody sitting right there, saying hello to everybody, good morning to everybody. Most of the offices, a large office and conference suite, bathrooms, the medical device storage, which also you could put more space downstairs and less up here, but the gift shop is here. Kitchen serves the dining room as well as can serve the multi-purpose rooms, can serve the great room. There's a folding wall for the dining room so that it can be either closed all the time, if that's kind of how programming works and you want acoustic separation there, or maybe that folding wall never gets closed. And it's always just this big open area that really shares social space, arts, the tripartite multi-purpose room, and then this kind of central hallway, which, social hall, game room, hangout space, it's skylit, and it becomes the living room that makes this into kind of a big house for everybody. There's an outdoor terrace with a trellis over it. Could be a roof over it. In this case, it's trellis, maybe grapevines growing on it or whatever. Lots of outdoor terrace, and then, the view from that outdoor space, looking out over the fairway. Here's those deciduous trees I was talking about earlier. Outdoor patio here, outdoor patio at the lower level there. And it's really, again, there's just minimal development on the lower level. And there's those skylights over the social space in between, and then the roof is popped up a little bit over the multi-purpose rooms, the great room and these multi-purpose rooms, a little higher ceiling in those spaces. Sections are similar. Here's the drop-off. Here's the sort of double height, that little lounge, which looks big here, but obviously it's small in plan. Here's skylights over that central space, multi-purpose room, the little higher roof, outdoor terrace with railings, and then the view out from the terrace over the fairway.
Any questions on this scheme? Then, oh,
You talk a lot about the orientation of south-facing scheme 2, but scheme 3 has the same level of benefit to the reorientation of the building?
Well, this piece is rotated, the big rooms are rotated a little more to the south to improve that condition, yeah.
In scheme 3?
In scheme 3, scheme 2 is really oriented around to the south. Scheme 3, because it stretches out along that built plateau that was constructed, we believe, in the 50s when they built the golf course, and they just kept piling up the dirt from the water hazards there to, anyway, it's west facing, and so this longer building is predominantly west facing, but we make an effort for those tall glass walls of the multipurpose rooms and the great room to give them a slightly better solar orientation for shading, yeah.
okay, you want to take us to the last but certainly not least?
Right, so, so we hired PM&C cost estimators. I'm assuming that the Municipal Building Commission has seen their estimates before. They're one of the major players in public building in eastern
I
Massachusetts.
think they did this building we're in.
They did the estimates for this building. So we've done probably 30 projects where they estimate for us. We don't do our own estimates. We're very extremely comfortable that we don't do our own estimates. So we can always point, well, we didn't make those numbers up, And it's not what we do day in and day out. So we're not the experts. They are. The top row of numbers, 11 million, 13 million, and 13 million, are their product. That's their construction cost estimates. That's what we would expect bid opening to show for the bids. That is tailored to a May 1st, 2025 construction start. There's always escalation. You project out, and you raise the costs the further out you're planning on starting construction. If we gave you estimates for starting construction on November 1st, 2023, they wouldn't fully, they wouldn't show the actual cost. So this escalates to May 1st, 2025, which is reasonable. You have to, go through a lot of city process to do this project, and then you need to do a whole design and bidding process. And so if you focus, as Mark was saying, I think it was Mark earlier got a great team, the city has a great team, and if you get the job done, that's a reasonable maybe timeframe to start construction. So the bottom numbers, which are the numbers that you should focus on, are just, there's 30% of the top number added, multiplied by 1.3. Where does that come from? Just experience. That's a number that that isn't typically the number that we don't usually build, that total project cost budget. That's something that the city does with their owner's project manager for a project of this size, or you guys do it or whatever. But that 30% number is pretty comfortable one. Sometimes it's lower, it can be budgeted higher, and there's just a list of the kind of things that get built into why does it cost another $2 million. So it includes construction contingency. Maybe that should be listed last, but you never go into a project without some money set aside for contingency for change orders, no matter what. And even if you are building a new building, you still have uncertainty about you're gonna find underground when you start digging or whatever, and the demolition. So you have construction contingency. You have design fees, architecture and engineering. You have to hire an OPM. Survey, testing that happens during construction, building commissioning, mechanical commissioning, envelope commissioning, potential utility back charges, that's an owner expense if you need to bring in, potentially Eversource, National Grid, somebody wants to charge the owner something. And then that also there's something in here for furniture, fixtures, and equipment, FF&E. And that can be a lot. I mean, I'm sure you saw big numbers for FF&E when you built this building. You had a lot of rooms to fill with desks.
Way above budget, too. It was a big one.
Yes.
Yeah, so anyway, that's what that markup is. I had a conversation, the big thing that well, so let's talk about the square footages. The square footages, for the first two options are the same. One of the reasons, so when we give you these square footages, net and gross, we're not counting double height space twice. We're still just counting floor space. So just so you know that, that the bigger double height space, that's just not in the square footages. So these two buildings have the same amount of floor space. And the reason that the net floor space is greater, and so you have a greater efficiency on the rehab, is because we're programming a lot of those spaces that don't have windows on the lower level, using them. And that, we had a lot of conversations with Kelly about that, whether that works for Council on Aging, and she said there are a lot of, they show movies. There are, fitness room. There's a lot of really high-quality programming that they can do. These rooms, this will have new HVAC equipment. It'll have excellent ventilation. So those will be very livable rooms, and that's where that higher efficiency comes from. So I had a conversation today. I called Denise Kelly, who from PM&C, who's the lead estimator on this project. So she did a lot of the takeoffs herself, and then she coordinated the work of the mechanical, estimator, who's somebody different, and the site estimator. She headed up the team, and I said, explain to me why a building that has 1,500 fewer gross square feet, the one on the right, 14,600 square foot building, is more expensive than the new option that's 16,100 square feet. How can this be? Like, what's the difference? And she gave me about 5 reasons that all made sense to me. I said, thank you very much. That's the answer I needed. So she said that, first of all, there's no, even though it's smaller, there's no savings on the basic mechanical equipment, that it's all the size of all of the mechanical equipment. The heat pumps and the blowers and all of that, it's the same equipment. And that the money that you get back on dropping that 1,500 square feet, that's all, there are no toilets in that 1,500 square feet you're taking away. There's no kitchen equipment in that 1,500 square feet you're taking away. There's no expensive space, it's just floor area. So you have less gypboard, less flooring, less sprinkler heads, less acoustic tile, less lights. So all of that comes down, but you're pulling back about $150. You're pulling out about $150 a square foot, not $500 a square foot or whatever, as you, in that downsizing. So the savings aren't great. So where's the higher expense? So she said that because it's predominantly a single-story building, there's a bigger hole to fill for the basement of the existing building. So there's more imported gravel to fill up that hole. She said that it also has more retaining walls, more site walls, and that it also has this wonderful outdoor terrace. So there's more outdoor living space that we drew, and this trellis. I don't know I'd have to look to see what they priced on that wonderful wood trellis there, and of course we could strip it away. But at any rate, she said that all those development costs is what contributed to it. So, again, all this can get iterated. If everybody was super excited about this scheme but said it cost too much, then that would be the next study. But at any rate, I thought that was an important explanation to share. So I'll stop there.
Appreciate that. And along those lines, you delivered tens and tens of pages of cost estimates that we don't have here. They went to Mason, and that was my direction to you. If any members of the commission want to actually look at those documents and peruse them, Mason will make it available to you electronically.
Right. It's a 46-page cost estimate, all numbers.
And, you know, to me, it wouldn't make sense for me to read the 46 pages. I wouldn't know one page from the other, but perhaps some of the others on the commission may be interested. So if you are, Mason will make arrangements with you.
Likewise, the study that was done by the civil engineers with their drawings that went to the cost estimators, likewise, the study that was done by the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and fire protection engineers that along with their narrative, likewise, our architectural outline specifications that talks about all of the different architectural systems and what the assumption should be for, you know, and again, I called Jack and I said, the existing building has horizontal clapboard on it. Should we assume horizontal clapboard, hardy painted clapboard, more or less what's on the existing building for all the schemes? And he said, well, that makes sense. Why don't you do that? So anyway, we did specify all of those kinds of finishes so that we would have a cost estimate that was tied to clear assumptions.
So this is the executive summary, and all of the material is available if anyone wants to read it. It's a public document. So I think at this point, I'd like to get some reactions, and I think I know you're time limited, Mayor, so I'll start with you if you want to.
I'm sticking with door number one. I've been advocating for reuse. I happen to like that design. Not only, so I do like the reuse idea, but I thoroughly like the first design more than the other two, particularly what David did with the open space and the vestibule area, whatever you call it, but, yeah, so I'm predisposed to number one. I have been from the go, but I actually think the design, and particularly with Kelly's input, is really creative and makes a lot of sense to me, so that's where I'm at.
And I can't imagine that 2.6 and 2.8 million dollars gets your attention.
Well, yes, of course. Look, I'm nothing if not consistent. I want to save money. It makes sense to me for several reasons to do the reuse. There's nothing wrong with the building. And although I appreciate David's point about the orientation, I was just there last week with a couple of, it's perfectly sited. It's an absolutely beautiful, one of the best locations in the city when you look out those windows. So whether we turn it a little this way or that way, to me, that doesn't make a big difference. I appreciate the sun aspect, but it's just a beautiful space in a beautiful place, and I think it has more life to give. So I'm all in on option one.
Okay. Commission members, any thoughts you want to share? You looked up, so I caught your eye.
What scenario do you recommend?
Are you asking me?
Let's see.
As I said at our last meeting, the low light and the low ceiling on the lower level concern me. And adaptive reuse, if it doesn't rise to the level of really both, on the one hand, sufficiency, and then on the other hand, I'll just use the word joy. If it doesn't bring enough joy, we worked with the town of Millis. They ultimately didn't get their funding when they went to town meeting on their senior center. They took the center school and veterans. Anyway, they rebuilt in the early 90s their middle school, elementary, maybe it was a high school, right in the middle of town as town offices with the senior center in the basement. Now, it's a basement, and this isn't. This has light all around on the upper level, and this has a spectacular setting, so it's apples and oranges. But they built the senior center in the basement, and they don't get, like, most of any senior in town who's not primarily short on money doesn't use the senior center. It doesn't get, not a lot of people use it. There's not a lot of joy there. It's hard for them to really elevate the level of service and build community. And so they're working hard, but they're done with being in that building and in that basement, and they want to move somewhere else. And so I think that's sort of where I come from in terms of being concerned about reuse. But I too, like the mayor, think that the plan worked out really well in the adaptive reuse. And I think it's really hard to walk away from $2.5 million. And I have absolutely I don't really want to advise you which way to go. I think that, of these three, I think the one that's maybe the coolest and most wonderful is the third one, the single-story scheme, where it's just all laid out on a single story, but you do have that direct access to the outside. Obviously, could use some more development. Maybe it could be put on a little bit of a diet, bring the cost down, trim the trellis, maybe move a little more utility stuff downstairs or whatever. But I think that from a functional standpoint, I mean, the person you should be asking is Kelly, not me. Like, my opinion really doesn't matter here. I've kind of put it out. Michaela and I, part of the reason it took us so long to get back to you is that we, iterated, to use the term architects use this, at least a dozen times. How many times have you redrawn these, Michaela? Like 20 times? I mean, we just kept going around, we could get better this way and that way, and matching it up and sending it to Kelly and everything. So I like all of them. I think that any one of them is a good solution. I'll stop there.
What is that efficiency percentage? What is that?
Net to gross. It's just those two numbers that are right in front of you.
Jake?
Okay, a couple questions. You talk about the ceiling height on option number 1 versus option 2 and 3. What is the ceiling height that we'd be working with on the 2 levels on option number 1? Like, what's the difference? Are we talking like 9 foot to 9'6", or are we talking 9 foot to 12 foot?
Oh, you mean what it would be in the new building?
Versus what we would have if we rehabbed option number 1.
The existing building sections, you've got, I think it's 149.4 to 160. So you've got, it's 10'8" floor to finish floor to finish floor, 10'8".
On both floors.
In the existing building, lower level.
A low level, okay.
Upper level is 11, no, that's to the roof. So yeah, it's only about, it's probably pretty similar. Let's just say 10'8" is floor to, no, upper level floor, that's floor to floor. Upper level floor to roof is 11'4". So you got an extra 8 inches upstairs. And I think that, if you end up with, you can squash it. We can move ducts around so that they're kind of in vertical boxes and blowing sideways and then we can pop up ceilings into coffers. We can do a lot to try to, but the existing ceiling height is definitely below 9 feet, and with the acoustic tile. And that's fine for a lot of rooms, but as you get to great big rooms, it starts to press on you. Anyway.
What would it be in a new building?
Well, what did we draw?
Like in option 3.
Is it 10, what? Oh, Michaela says that because of Revit, because of the way she drew it, she just kept the floors the same in all of them. So it would need to be bigger, though. It would be bigger. I think 10 feet to the acoustic tile is plenty. It's fine. It doesn't have to be like this. But I think for any kind of rooms of size, it should be more than that. And for a great room, a 2,400 square foot room, it should be 12 feet. But.
And you had mentioned with option number 1, we should factor in the unforeseen change order that would come up with the rehab. Like, is there a ballpark number on that? Like, are we going to eat the $2 million difference right
Hope
out?
not. I don't think so, no.
Okay.
What would should you be carrying from the start of a project a bigger construction contingency in a adaptive reuse rehab project than in a new construction project? I think it would be really smart to increase your contingency. What do municipalities go into? What kind of construction contingencies do municipalities carry going into projects? It varies a lot. Sometimes there's just not enough money to adequately fund the construction contingency, but for a rehab project, going in with a 5% construction contingency would be crazy to me. It's not nearly enough. You would want to be well above that for a rehab project. And then as you get into bigger and bigger projects, the percentage of a construction contingency goes down and down. So you don't have to carry proportionate amounts of money, but.
I would imagine we'd be at a 10% on a rehab as opposed to a 5% for a building of this size.
Okay.
Other questions you have or observations? Ed, any observations?
Yeah, I had the opportunity a couple of days ago to spend some time in that building, looking at things very closely. I was amazed at how good a condition the building is after being closed for several years. And I also noticed that all the windows that I could inspect, which was most of them, were double pane, so it's been kept up to date. As far as the great room and the low ceiling, I've been in that building when it was full of people and when it was empty. I don't feel that it was foisted, the ceiling took away from the expanse of that room. And I think, I may be wrong, but with a lower ceiling, I think that it's a quieter room with a lot of people in it. Is that a fact? Rather than a high ceiling which allows the sound to go. But at any rate, with the things that you pointed out, the elevator, the 1 in 20 pathways, and maybe even 1 in 30 or 1 in 40 pathways, and I mean, I think you have to be taking the handicapped and people that aren't handicapped just a little slower and a little more difficult going up and downstairs. I think that you've addressed that, and the flexibility, again, as I spoke before, I like the idea of being able to subdivide and open spaces, and you can, as your needs change. So I like that option one a good deal more than any of the others.
Thank you. Andrew?
I like being able to reuse the building. Just concerned with what the potential extras could be, the unknown. But I think risk outweighs the additional costs with going new. The second concept, I didn't think having the great room down on the lower level beneficial to having it on the main floor. I'd like to consider reuse.
Gail?
I agree. I'm all for the reuse of the building, but I also look at 3, and there are a lot of features in there that I like as well. But so I'd prefer to reuse the building though.
Terry?
I prefer the reuse. I thought 3 was nice, but when you look at the dollar difference, it's 2.7 million difference in dollars. So the reuse for me seems fine.
Jackie?
I liked 1, but I really would like to hear Kelly.
I was about to go there after you. So Kelly, you want to share your thoughts?
Going back to your term of joy, I can totally appreciate that, and I'm sure the seniors in Attleboro do as well. Just to point out on the option 1 with the downstairs, really there's light, especially with bumping that up in that area where, on the top floor. So there's going to be light coming in that way, as well as into all of the program rooms, with the exception of the Shine offices. And I honestly, with Shine, people are not in there for hours upon hours. And the staff, none of the staff sit at their desks all day, so they're getting up and about and interacting with the seniors that are coming in for whatever reason. And to go back to the idea of repurposing a building that has a lot of nostalgia attached to it, I think that's special to a lot of people, at least the ones that I've had an opportunity to speak with. And just the layout really speaks to increasing the programming opportunities and getting people outside, because we don't have that opportunity right now. They're in the walls and at the church because we can't fit everybody. So this really expands opportunities for seniors of all generations, and hopefully not just people of limited means, but that we start to engage different generations at the senior center.
And just in terms of natural light, I want to give a second shout out for bringing light into interior spaces to the mayor, who suggested, so there were closets all along here, because multipurpose rooms need storage. And the mayor asked, can't we open that up? So now this is all glass storefront, glass doors and glass walls all the way along here. And then there's this big storage room here. So the tables and chairs on carts or whatever are conveniently stored nearby. But the game room now has both natural light and a direct view out to the green through the multipurpose room. So all of this space has a direct, connection to natural light.
David, couldn't we, your block of office spaces there, 7, 8, the block
Yeah,
there?
that can have glass too, sure.
Yeah, windows, glass, and then they can have the option of privacy with shades, or they can open up and you could literally see through the whole floor. So light can flow. Let's have less walls and more glass windows. You know what I mean? Like an office can have windows too, so.
Right, if you ever want to change careers, like, we have a lot of extra desks in the office because so many people are working remotely. Come up to to Boston.
And I really appreciate your effort. You guys obviously put a lot of time and effort into all of these things, so.
Yeah, so I wanted to share a few thoughts. One is that for Scheme 3, I understand that there is some appeal to having everything on sort of one floor, but I don't think it takes advantage of the site in the same way that the other schemes do. And I think that part of the appeal to me of this whole thing is putting it there, right there in the park, with the outdoors so accessible. And even though there's accessible outdoors on Scheme 3, I really especially like Scheme 1 for that reason. I also have a hard time getting by $2.5 million, and we have to be practical. We have to understand what the city can afford, what the taxpayers will think, what the city council will think, what the mayor and her finance team will think. So we always have to take those things into account. I commend you for the work that you did, and Kelly for the work that you did, because I think all of the schemes work in terms of laying out office space and making sure the program is there. But for $2 million of construction cost, rehabbing that building is where my preference is. And I think, the art of the possible, I can just imagine standing up there at the podium in the city council and saying, well, we could have spent $2 million less, but, we didn't. That's a hard thing to sell. So those things in mind, any of the audience members want to share any thoughts? Raise a hand if you want to.
I was just going to say, I am really impressed with what Kelly and Mayor did with consolidating those schemes for the rehab. You really put together a really nice thing. It looks to me to be a no-brainer. Very nice. It fits exactly what we want. And it's cheaper. I mean, the others really, except for you, doesn't really add anything.
Yeah. I think, and I want to emphasize again, Kelly said this, the value in that space. Right, David, how many COAs are in a former golf course? Probably not. I mean, so we cannot undervalue the outdoor, the addition of that space and the addition of outdoor. I'd like to put a dollar sign. Can you put a dollar amount on the location? Right, so there
Priceless.
yeah, it's awesome, and all the things we can do outside. And to me, this is going to help finish Highland, right? We've been struggling with what to do with Highland. Now we have a defining piece. Now we can really put a bow on Highland, because it's one of the best things the city did, in my opinion, was to build the high school and buy Highland, were two of the best decisions in the last several years, and we could put this all together. So I am super excited, because I think we can all, you all have your opinions, but this is not a hard sell, in my opinion, when you put this on paper and show people this. But there's a lot to be done, but anyway, that's how I feel.
David, before I get to you, one question I forgot to ask you. What is the construction program? Is it 12 months? Is it 18 months? What would we be looking at to cut a ribbon from whenever we start?
I hadn't really come up with that. I would think, 15, 16 months would be a guess. It could be done maybe quicker, but
Somewhere in the middle between 12 and 18.
I think so.
Okay, thank you. So, in the back there?
I would just wanted to add that I'm the vice chair of the council, the advisory council of the council. I thank everybody involved, because as a member of that council for over 10 years, we've been talking about this forever. We're just spinning our wheels and spinning our wheels. Nothing's ever come to it until now. Now that we actually have actual plans, that they all look great. I agree, I like scheme one. But again, like you said, they're all workable. But it's just so exciting to finally see something on paper with real numbers. I feel like it's getting traction. Thank you on behalf of the board for all the time and effort put into this. I'm so excited that things are actually concretely moving forward.
I'm excited. It's going to happen. It's going to happen, folks. It's going to happen.
Joe?
Yeah, I just want to add my 2 cents. Team one is definitely the way to go. I really like the design. It just looks so amazing. And I do want to give the mayor and the city a bit of a warning. You might have to plan to add a lot of staff to the Council on Aging, because I think this is going to be so incredibly popular compared to where they currently are, that there's going to be such an increased demand for senior center activities, senior center. Better start planning to put it.
Point, Joe.
It's the only thing.
Good point.
Oh, I think so, they will, yeah, for sure.
Pam?
We knew there was going to be a Debbie Downer. I find it hard to face the merits of the various plans. All have a lot to be said. 14 plus million. Also need a public safety. We need to share. And as Mr. Jacoby pointed out, the most important was the price. Build a new center. Says that this is a feasible one for a new council. Not say it's the only site suitable for it. Beginning of the discussion, the difference in the site elevations adds to cost, it adds to the difficulty of figuring this out. I still wish we had looked more at our options, other places in the city. Level site. I don't think we investigated all our options. That's my
Well, I can respond to that by saying we started with a dozen sites, and we looked at them very carefully, and this was by far the superior site for many reasons. So I would disagree with you on that. And, you know, whether the public safety building, you know, gets built, you know, I'm not sure that that's part of what we were tasked with doing here. We were tasked with coming up with a site and a program and a cost, and then, you know, it will be up to the mayor and the council as to whether they will fund this or not, but we certainly appreciate your input. I guess the only other thing I will say before wrapping this up is that just there are a whole lot of steps that happen between now
Right.
and the ribbon cutting.
So we need the final report, we're still waiting for the final report, right, from Abacus?
We will be asking, I think, tonight for a final report to finish the feasibility
Right.
study.
So there's still additional outstanding tasks. I mean, one was alluded to when you had mentioned sort of a preliminary project timeline, right? That's something that still has to be built out, included in the final report. I mean, these are part of the critical tasks that were included in the request for qualifications and the proposal. So yeah, I mean, again, we still have to move towards final report. I mean, I think Abacus is probably looking for direction on that. And then it's, you know, there's going to be a lot of review and discussion, and in a process like this, I mean, really, then you have to look at if you're moving forward with one scheme or whatever you're moving forward with, the next step after that is securing some funding for, not just for the overall project, but for the OPM, which is kind of the next step. And then there's, you know, it just continues to, even the May 2025, which is where the cost estimates were built on, I know it's 18 months in theory, but that is a pretty aggressive timeline when you kind of start looking at, you know, what has to be hit if you started next month.
And I totally agree with you, because we need a source of funding. Then the next step is we interview and hire an owner's project manager who helps us interview and hire the architect. We have to determine if we're going to do construction manager at risk or a traditional building contract. Then there's some time to actually do the design, get to construction documents, get to bidding. You generally want to get out to bid in the winter, like January, February, if you want a spring start. So there are just a lot of steps. So I don't want to bring everybody down saying that, but I do want everybody to understand that it is an aggressive timeline to start in May of 2025, but the first step we need right now is to get to your final report. And I'm going to ask the commission members, are you comfortable with tasking them after we've done what we've done tonight with putting together that final report?
Or option number one.
Well, I
Or in
think
general?
the final report would list all three options, but I think the consensus of this group was to list option number one as the first choice. Would that be fair?
Yes.
Yep.
So if that's the case, Councilor Waterman, did you have something you
I
want?
want to interrupt you. You want to finish?
Okay, well, I was just, I was going to ask the commission then for a vote to task the architect with completing the report with option one as the prime choice, but if you have something to say, please add it.
Well, as the city councilor here, I will advocate for this as much as I possibly can. I think option one is clearly the best way to go. Something I hear at doors every day, how much people love the idea of coming to and love, as you referred to, the tremendous memories that people have in the building that we have now can't be overstated. There's so many people that tell me about weddings and other events that they've had there, that it's a memory factor. That's a joy factor. And I thought the work you did, Kelly, was tremendous. I don't know if we really mentioned the patio outside. I think that's a terrific idea. I'll probably live out there. Yeah, and I think one thing I hear that's a little jolting when I'm at the doors is, please get it done before I die. So I don't think May 25 is it could be even a little quicker, I'd love it, but let's at least set that idea as a way to go.
Understood. So, is it the sense of the commission that we should task the architect with finishing the feasibility study with option 1 as the prime option?
Yes.
We do that in the form of a motion, Jackie?
So moved? You just said it all. I said so moved.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Again, I want to say that in the last 3 or 4 months, we have come a long way, and that is testimony to the hard work of the architects and Kelly, the input of this commission, the mayor, Mason, and the people in the audience, because we listened to all that you had to say. And so I'm very pleased that we've gotten this far, and I look forward to taking the next steps at the appropriate time. So, we don't have to do anything else, do we, Mason? Next Wednesday is our next regular meeting?
Yeah, we have a regular meeting next Wednesday at 5:30 at City Hall.
Excellent. So, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
At 7:11, all those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.